For more on this, we are joined by Gautam Mukherjee, senior journalist located here in New Delhi. And we're also joined by Professor Rohan Gunaratne, Middle East affairs expert located in Singapore. Thank you very much for joining us, gentlemen. I want to kickstart this with input from Gautam Mukherjee. Despite being barred from any political elections until 2030, Bolsonaro still remains a huge political figure in Brazil. Do you think this trial might weaken his influence in Brazil, or do you think it might be used to rally his supporters and strengthen his movement, possibly?
I think the latter. I think he is rallying his supporters. He doesn't want to disappear off the map. Lula's been in power for almost 2 years now. Bolsonaro narrowly lost the elections, then went to America, at which time he was also accused of all sorts of things. He denied them. He is still battling. Lula is pretty elderly. Bolsonaro is much sturdier, and so he's hoping to outlive Lula and come back with his support base. If they jail him now, I don't think it'll stick for very long.
Professor Gunaratne, I wanted to kind of phrase the same kind of question to you. We obviously have seen this with other major political figures in the past. We've seen an insurrection attempt in the month of January. We've seen charges once he's lost the election, and we've seen political comebacks after this. Can we see this, something similar happening here with Bolsonaro in South America?
In South America, or for that reason in South and Central America, we have seen such allegations and such charges. In this case, there are two principal charges. One is that he tried to poison Lula da Silva, and the second is, of course, that he want to shoot dead the Supreme Court judge, Alexandra de Moraes. I personally believe that these charges are unsubstantiated. And it is very important for governments to be careful for the criminal justice and prison systems to get involved in this kind of infighting, because it's not going to help any of those countries. And I think that it is vital for Latin American leaders to ensure that these personal disputes, political and personal disputes, are not taken to such a level, and that courts do not charge and prosecute simply because they are in the opposition.
Gautam Mukherjee, President Lula da Silva is receiving record disapproval ratings in Brazil. Obviously, Bolsonaro will be out of the race in 2026, but we will be able to run once again in 2030. But could we see maybe Bolsonaro aligning himself with someone more conservative that matches his ideology? And could this trial lead to that candidate's success, maybe with Bolsonaro aligned alongside him in the future?
Yes, provided he survives till then. 2030 is still 5 years away, and Lula is very much aware that Bolsonaro is going for the jugular. Whether he'll let him being in charge of the government and with the armed forces backing him is a very big question mark. Bolsonaro is vulnerable right now, and I think if he wants to do something in 2030, his best bet would be to go into exile for the time being, to make sure there's no threat to his life.
Professor Rohan Gunaratne, Bolsonaro was a hugely divisive leader. You look at his handling of COVID. You look at some of his very, very conservative policies. There's clear polarization going on in Brazil right now, similar to what we see in America, etc. His critics claim that he is being unfairly targeted. How do you think this trial is affecting Brazil's already divided society? And do you think it could further radicalize the political discourse going on over there?
Polarization will continue. It will destabilize Brazil because both these leaders are popular. In fact, they are very close to each other in the last election. And I believe that in the larger interest of Brazil, they should not use such tactics to accuse and investigate and to prosecute their political opponents, because it will eventually damage the country, it will damage the citizens, it will divide the people. There will be no harmony in that great nation.
Gautam Mukherjee, even if Bolsonaro is convicted, could his movement survive and thrive under a new leader, perhaps? And what factors will determine the future of the far right in South America, do you think, in Brazil?
Well, I think if he is convicted, or if he thinks he's going to be convicted, he would probably leave the country so that he doesn't have to share power with a new leader, and he can still rally his supporters from outside. Because if he hands over leadership of his movement to someone else, that someone else will most likely replace him, and he'll be isolated and finished off either in jail or in exile. So it's not easy for him to do anything other than lead his supporters.
Rohan Gunaratne, we've obviously saw this with Donald Trump, a alleged insurrection and a former leader going through the court system in a country. Are we going to expect to see a bit more of this kind of these kind of actions from these leaders? Is denying the results of elections becoming more common?
Absolutely. You can see a global trend. Before, leaders always campaigned for unity, for harmony, to bring people together. Today, people spread disinformation, misinformation, conspiracy theories, divide populations, and then come to power. So this has become the new trend, especially because of the prevalence of social media, the domination. And here we are seeing a classic such case, first in the United States and now in Brazil, and it will repeat again and again.
And Gautam Mukherjee, what do you have to say about this? Obviously, it's very obvious that misinformation, social media had a huge part in this. I mean, if you watch these videos of this 2022 insurrection, I mean, they have pretty much swapped MAGA hats for yellow Brazilian shirts, which is signature with Bolsonaro. What can you tell me about this? And do you think that established leaders in established democracies can just deny the result of an election now and move forward with that, and then once again earn re-election once again and still maintain popularity?
Well, I wouldn't call it misinformation and disinformation so much as differing ideologies. You've got Lula on the left with a lot of what is now referred to as wokeism as part of his support base. Now, these people think in a certain way, and they're just as ruthless as anybody on the right in terms of maligning the other side, using whatever device comes to hand, from violence to the institutions, to the courts. This was also borne out by, if you like, the Biden administration vis-a-vis Trump when he was, not in power for the 4 years. There were multiple cases laid at his doorstep. There's a lot of court cases that implied that he was dishonest, that he was a fascist, that he was, anti-constitution, that he was a danger to the country, that he was an autocrat. and so on. And similar things are being said about Bolsonaro. So, it's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. Neither side is exactly Snow White. You've got, one side happens to be in power. In Brazil, it is the left which is in power at present. And in America, it is now the right that has once again come back to power and is asserting itself very boldly.
Thank you very much, Gautam Mukherjee and Rohan Gunaratne, for joining us in that discussion.